K Kim here with the Traders Club. Welcome to the market update. As I record this video, market should be open another, let's see here, hour and a half. As I record this video, market should be open hour and a half. So I am recording this intraday. Keep that in mind. Let's continue with our analysis here. Let's start with the spider, diamond, Qs, Russell, Semi, and the banks here. Let's start with, let's see, when was last Friday? That was 5th. So 5th was, okay, just right over here. So I think that's the reason why. Okay, so this is, we talked about this gap area, right? This gap here. So this, I didn't change anything from last weekend's market update. So we talked about the gap area, how the gap area provides support, and we've been kind of tracking the gap here, and that's kind of what we saw here. So this was Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today actually gap is open. My charting software is just kind of showing that long wick here, but if we actually go to the 65-minute chart, you can actually see, let me get rid of those. You can kind of see we have a gap here. Right, so we do have that gap. So what we're gonna do now, let's track this gap, put this right here, right? Because that was market close yesterday, and we gapped up here. We're holding up, right? We're very near all-time high level here, right? Just a few points away. We got this small down gap, right? This small down gap that hasn't been filled. That's a downside gap. That's kind of probably where it's going to fill that gap. On the Nasdaq, though, we filled that. I tweeted out earlier, I think yesterday. So why is this a little bit messy? Okay, I wanna do this. What I wanna do actually, I'm gonna turn it into some one big gap area, even though there's two gaps like that, right? That looks clean. That looks clean. So, because there's gap here, there's a little bit of gap there, but that's pretty strong, important pivot, you can say, right? Because that's that 280 level. Oh, that's actually an island. This is actually an island. You know what? Let's turn that into green. So we can see that that's an island gap, right? That was a gap down, and then with a gap up. So that's an island, and then regular gap, just a little tiny one, but we'll just do that since that 280 is important level. So that important 280, 284, we see that we saw some gapping up action. We had that island reversal. Ever since then, it's been just really grinding higher, right? And we also been tracking this right there, right? That kind of a rising wedge formation, right? So we've been kind of all resistance becoming new support type of action happening here, and we saw another gap up today, holding up so far. And you know, S&P is currently up 24% since the December lows. And S&P is only away about 1.2% until the all-time high. And I think it's going to continue to grind higher. I think that gap is going to provide support should the price decline next week. And something that I've been saying throughout pretty much this whole year is that when you see a gap up, if this thing gaps down, that will be an island top. We really haven't seen any kind of island top. It's kind of always been island bottom. All these green boxes are island bottom, right? You see that there was a gap down, gap up. So if we do see island bottom and this thing gaps down, then we're probably gonna come down, you know, retest 284. If we kind of fizzle and come and fill this gap on Monday, that's probably gonna that level, that gap area is gonna act as intraday support early next week. If we continue higher, probably going to fill that gap at 291. Once that gap gets filled, we're probably gonna hang around, pause. And this price action is really irritating hell out of the bears, because we're really not moving high, like we're really not moving fast, but we've just been really grinding and very lethargic, right? It just, you know what, where are my moving averages? I think I moved all my moving averages last time. So let's put those moving averages back on. I'm gonna get rid of the 10. We don't really need 10 there. So we got some 20s, 50s there. You know what? I'm gonna remove 20 just so we can kind of clear up the chart there. So I think that gives us kind of a pretty good idea. Why? Because you can see 100 SMA kind of hovered above that level, now down here. 200 SMA obviously in this vicinity. That 50 MA kind of scooped up that level. So we got the gap area at 284, man. We got this 50 MA in this vicinity is rising, 50 and 200 SMA crossed. So I mean, we got these long-term moving averages down here, but we got this big this island gap area, which is gonna provide very solid support should the price slide either next week or next couple of weeks. But for now, this little guy, that little gap area, that's gonna also provide support. So the gaps are a good thing. The gaps are deployed by the bulls as a cushion. It is there should the price come down. A lot of times that act as support. And even here, I mean, we talked about it last Friday, that little gap, that's what that little gap did. That little gap that was just here. And that's why last Friday, we put that box there. We pulled back, and that was actually a gap down, right? That was actually a gap down. So we pulled back and then filled that gap, and then bulls brought it, and that gap became a cushion, you see. It became a cushion, and then we saw another gap up today. So that gap is also going to provide cushion. If bears really want to bring this thing down to 284, like I said earlier, you want to see bears gapping it down, make into an island top, and then, you know, bears want to come down and retest at 284, which is also coinciding with that kind of rising wedge area, which is at 284. So those are the levels to watch going into next week. Let's continue with the diamond. Diamond. So I haven't changed anything on this chart since last week. So what we see here is that this gap holding, this gap level holding. You see that? That gap is holding. This is why this is why I always track gaps. But today we opened up another gap, right? What is that gap today? That's an island gap, because remember, this thing was here, we gap here. Let's zoom in. There you go, right? This was here and we gapped down. And we gapped above it. Not only that, we came down and retest right at that gap area. So that's what we call island reversal. So now we've held this gap. We got another gap. It is not looking too good for the short-term bulls here. And I like to actually put gap up all the way to kind of where it's trading at, even though we saw it came down. So what I'm gonna do, zoom out again, and I want to highlight this like that, and in that process have filled that gap. Bulls filled that gap. So bears actually opened up this down gap, both of them just got filled. You see how when bears brought it down, where did they stop? Here, the gap area, and that's where we saw buyers coming in. And we saw a gap up today. That's a pretty sizable gap up. That's almost a 1% move today. That's a 1% gap up today. And we have that island reversal. And that's very important, because that's the pivotal area. That's the pivotal area. Why? That is at 261, 263. And that's when we saw that lower highs here. So we're gapping up above this level. We broke above this symmetrical triangle consolidation. We gapped above it. We pull back a little bit. We're gapping back up here. So if bears really want to make things hectic, man, you gap it down. You gap it back down here. and then turn this into an island top. And Japanese candlestick charting technique called it abandoned baby. Abandoned baby. That's a short-term reversal pattern, and that could potentially send this to maybe retest at 50 and fill these gaps. That if we see something like that, we see that 50 MA here, and that 50 MA is acting as support. These, that if we do see abandoned baby or island reversal or evening star reversal, they're all same thing. If we see that, then this could come down and then start filling these gaps, maybe come to 50 and then maybe kind of get back up here. And at the same time, we'll retest that level, prior resistance here, potentially new support, which is coinciding with the 50 MA. If we do see a gap down, if this thing fizzles and start coming down and fill this gap, once that gap gets filled, it's gonna act as support, something like that. But if we do continue higher, we have a like super tiny gap here too. We got like super tiny gap here. But then I think it's on its way to what? On its way to retest the highs here, right? That area, I think that's where it's gonna go. It's 272, right? We had a move, we had some consolidation. A lot of people are looking for much steeper decline. Like I said before many times, that market is not always gonna give you all clear, perfect entry, obvious level for you to go long, right? It's gonna consolidate. People are still very nervous. Gaps up, it continues to grind higher. Because when you're seeing these grindy moves, it's just like, it makes everybody nervous. Like, well, sooner or later, you're gonna see some shenanigan like this, you know? Like, this thing is just gonna see like 1% down there and just tankage or something like that. Right, so just people are just kind of watching it, but as the market, this grindy floating up move is actually favors the buyers, and it's a good thing when you look at things a long term. The longer it floats around, especially after a steep decline like this, the more stable, the more help, the more it favors a stabilization action or stabilization process, right? And we've already cleared some of these major, or we're clearing the major pivots here, the resistance here. So the longer it kind of floats around, the better it is to float bulls, because that's how the bulls like to move things. They like to take its time and like to just kind of consolidate. They like to go up, consolidate a bit, and then go up again. And this kind of move is what gonna kill the bears, whereas they continue to wait for some big downside move. And especially there's so many gaps here, and so these gaps are gonna all provide support should the price decline. Let's go to Qs here. Qs, we just clear or fill that gap. That was actually pretty decent size compared to Spider and Diamond. So let's remove that now, right? Just remove that there. Let's annotate that as the all-time high right here. We're very near to all-time high. We just fill that gap. That might, because we fill that gap, we may see some slowdown here, or maybe grind higher. We got that resistance. I won't be surprised this thing maybe kind of go up and then maybe pull back to, retest that gap area at 181. If bulls really want to make things hectic for the bears, we go up here, gap it up, go up, and then pull back, retest the gap, and then continue higher. Or we consolidate in that vicinity, something like that. But again, it's at this point, market is overbought. In you know what I mean? Just looking at things, just looking at it, we just pretty much went straight up. And we really didn't see a steep pullback. You can look at that. It's like 30% move since the December lows. And we all know market is overbought. And so, but what we don't know is we don't know when we're going to see a steep pullback. Are we going to see a steep pullback? Or are we going to see another consolidation like we saw in the diamond, right? Like something like this, where it takes about a month or so and just consolidate before going higher. See, we don't know that. Nobody does. So we'll continue, you want to continue to give benefit of doubt, right? We're no longer in a bearish territory. I mean, we talked about how, bulls have reclaimed every single lower highs, right? And so we're getting into that all-time high vicinity, and that's the level to watch. Let's go to Russell 2000. right? Russell 2000 not near all-time high, right? And the banks not near all-time high. And we got some of the lagging sectors, and they are going to prop up the market. And that's something that I've been saying last several weeks here. And you can see we're slowly grinding higher, right? And that let's put that right here. And that's, I think, the important pivot, 159. And you can see how that's. You can see how that's. We actually got small down gap here. I just saw it right there. So it looks like that might be where it's headed. Is there another gap that I didn't see? There's a tiny gap here. This just very small, tiny gap too. Let's do that too. There. Yep, that's pretty much it. We got these two tiny gaps. So I think that's kind of where the bulls are going to fill those gaps. Those are such a small gaps. I don't know if it's going to make a lot of impact as far as like becoming a resistance, but 159 is definitely, 159, 160 is definitely a level to overcome. We're still considering the fact that we haven't cultivated higher high yet on the Russell 2000. We have on other indices. I mean, when I say higher high, I don't mean all-time high. I mean the recent highs, such as like you see these are lower highs, right? We reclaimed all of those highs. Same thing with the diamond and the spider. I don't mean like all-time high, higher high, but I'm saying, but on the Russell 2000, we're still like, you know, in that vicinity of equal high. So we want to see this thing popping up and cultivating a finally higher high, and then maybe a pullback, and then kind of, you know, establish an uptrend in that fashion, which I think is going to do. Let's go to semi. Semis, yeah, semis cleared that. And then we cleared this. Now you see, this is what I mean. This was this was a lower high right here. We cleared that with the higher high. Now you see how it is making lots of progress where these are lower highs, right? And now this has been reclaimed. We got higher high now. So now, oh, not only that, we also reclaimed this too. That's also reclaimed. So we got one last thing, which is that, oh, we are just at the all-time high. Look at that. We're just at the all-time high. And it moved up 40%. Semis moved 40% since the December lows. 28% year to date. What a great move, right? What a great move. And you think because of this we should have a steep decline? Well, go back and study early 2016 move on the semi. Then you can kind of forecast or foresee what could potentially happen remainder of this year. Let's go to banks, and we'll call it a day. Banks here, we just, so you see these gaps here. This is a neckline, potentially for this inverted head and shoulders, right? And we just do that gap. So I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna do. Put that gap like that. I'm gonna move these up here because that's a pivotal area. Because we got that neckline, and this is that last known lower high right there. And we're just trading right up and just kind of making you guess, like, are we gonna come down, fill that gap, or is it gonna be a breakout? It's right on the neckline. I'm not sure. It's market loves to do that, just kind of making you guess. Are we gonna have a follow through on Monday, or are we gonna gap down and come down shenanigan, right? That's kind of where it's at. And it always gets a little bit tricky when you're dealing with the necklines. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's kind of looking at this here. And this is obviously known invert head and shoulders. And this is a pretty well-defined invert head and shoulders here. So that's kind of why just sitting right there, just so that it could kind of make you guess. We'll see what happens on Monday. I'm not sure. I mean, we'll hold, we hold, we don't. But the gap is going to, if we do start coming and filling it next week, probably is going to provide support. If this thing gaps down though, just like I said earlier about, was it the diamond? Then there's going to be evening star, reversal, or island top, or abandoned baby. And it could possibly go back down and retest some of these gaps here, and that could provide some support if we do see a gap down. And I'll watch the market early next week, and I'll tweet it out if we do see an island reversal or not. You guys can follow me at 2K Kim as I do, you know, share some charts and things throughout the week. So as I close out this video, market should be open another hour as I close out this video. So far S&P is up about 0.54%. So, well, you guys have a wonderful weekend and good luck trading next week.